focus. You are seeing the speaker view, isn't it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay. So the three different types of faith, even if it is tamasic faith, ultimately it will one reaches the Lord by His grace. So it is Lord who has created through His Maya, which is also known as Prakriti, the three different gunas. So if one has tamasic bhakti, he can only offer tamasic. If he is full of tamas, he will offer only tamasic bhakti. For example, Kaliya, the example of Kaliya who was killed by Sri Krishna. Kaliya could give only poison. So when Krishna said, "Why are you vomiting poison? Why are you trying to harm me or harm the other people?" Then somebody from the gopis said that if the Lord has given him poison, the Lord has not given him amrut, he has given him poison. So naturally he will give back whatever he has. So also when Girish Ghosh used to use very rough language initially when he came to Sri Ramakrishna, because very often he was in a very drunk mood, not in a proper state of mind. At that time, Ramchandra Datta told Thakur, Thakur said, "Why is Girish abusing me so much? I am so kind with him, but he speaks so roughly with me." So then Ramchandra Datta said, "You have given him this rough nature. So he won't speak sweet words because his nature, according to his prakriti or his characteristic or prakriti, his own nature, is full of tamas and a little bit of rajas. So naturally, he will offer only tamasic bhakti to you." So Sri Ramakrishna says, a man with the devotion of tamas has burning faith. He has faith. That faith will save him. But because he is tamasic, he behaves like his devotion is also tamasic. Such a devotee forces the Lord like a dacoit forces a man to part with his wealth. Tie him up, beat him, kill him. Such is the disposition of a dacoit. So Sri Ramakrishna says, if one is full of tamas, but somehow by some luck, by some good fortune, he worships the Lord. So all he can offer, he can't offer sattvic bhakti, he can offer only tamasic bhakti. So he offers that, and God's grace descends upon him slowly but surely. So Ramakrishna then looks upward and sings a song, Goya Ganga Prabhasadi Kashi Kanchi Keba Jai. Who will go to Goya Ganga? These are all the famous pilgrimage places of India. Gaya is famous for Buddhists and also Vishnu worshippers of Vishnu. Ganga, of course, is a very holy river. Prabhas is the place where Sri Krishna gave up his mortal coil. It was there he took Mahasamadhi. Prabhas is near Somnath in the western part of India. It's a few hundred miles away from Dwarka, but that is the place where Sri Krishna gave up his uh, mortal coil. And Kashi and Kanchi, of course, everybody knows. Kanchi is a famous place for Vaishnavas, and Shankaracharya also is there. So, why should I go? Normally, these were the important pilgrimage places where people used to go to purify themselves, to do sadhana. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, why should I go to all these places, Goya, Ganga, Prabhas, Kashi, or Kanchi, if I can breathe my last? I mean, if I have reached a state where I can chant Ma Kali's name, because if you have attended the Saturday class, so there Prayana Kale Yoga Balena, I mean we discussed the chapter 8th in the 12th verse where Sri Krishna is describing under what conditions does a person attain mukti and he doesn't come back. So first he says you have to close the doors or control the gates of the body. What are the gates? Sarva dwarani samyamya. Having controlled all the gates. Now this is connected with this song because the importance of rituals or going to pilgrimages is only for a person who is not a sadhaka, who is just an ordinary person who wants to develop some good samskaras. So he goes to his holy places of pilgrimage, earns a little merit, and perhaps that will inspire him to follow a devotional path or to follow a religious or spiritual path. So that is the purpose. And of course, for people who are siddhas, when they go to pilgrimage, they give the vibrations. No doubt there are vibrations in these places because of the visit of many holy men. But it is counterbalanced. But if you go there just for the sake of pilgrimage or as a tourist, or maybe just for sightseeing, just to say that I have visited these places, then it is not going to help. Because he says, if I chant Kali's name, under what conditions does one be able to chant Kali's name? It is not so easy that we say that oh, we will not worry. Whenever the last moment comes, I will chant God's name, my Ishta's name, or the Lord's name, and I'll get mukti. But the first line says that we don't need to go to all these pilgrimage places if I can breathe my last chanting Kali's name. So Sri Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter, 12th verse, he says, Prayana Kale means when you are about to depart from the body, the ideal condition for a yogi is to repeat the Lord's name as is there in the. But under what conditions does he repeat the Lord's name? First of all, he has to see the reactive mind or manas, with which is interacting with the world outside. That manas is not agitated. It does not disturb him. Because normally what happens, our sarva dvarani samyamya. Dwara means the 10 gates. What do you mean by 10 gates of this body? There are 5 gates of perception, 5 indriyas of perception, which is known as Gyanendriyas. And there are 5 karmendriyas, the 5 organs of action. So first you have perception, you get the input through these 5 indriyas, and then you act, and then you react, or not act, you react. Then you react to those 5 inputs you get from the different senses through your karmendriyas. So karmendriyas are organs of action or reaction. So the reactive mind, which is also in some books on Vedanta, even the mind is considered to be an indriya, because without the help of the mind, the indriyas don't function. There should be a unifying effect which the mind gives, the reactive mind gives, and works in unison with the 5 indriyas. So it's not enough if the input comes. A person may see, but if the mind does not connect it to and give back a reaction and make the karmendriyas, suppose you see some rasgulla or some sweet, the tongue starts, the eyes see it, but the tongue, the indriya of the tongue forces you to go towards that sweet and eat it. So before that, who is the agent who instructs the hand or the feet, hand and the feet, which are karmendriyas, to go towards the object and ask and force the person to eat that? No doubt the tongue, eyes see somebody, the tongue also starts watering. But if you control the tongue and control the eye, so how do you control? By controlling these gates. So one of the ways of, see, in this Sri Krishna is not saying that you have to close the gates. That doesn't mean we have to not have any interaction. The indriyas can still be, the gates can be open, but allow only the good people to enter the gates. Sarva dvarani sanyamya, controlling all the gates. If there is some control, then you will find that only the desirable impulses come in, and the desirable perceptions come in, and those desirable perceptions will give rise to desirable actions. So that is the logic behind Sarva Dvarani Sanyamya. Then what we do with, once you have controlled the gates, once you have made sure that no external influence will disturb or agitate your reactive mind, then what do you do with the reactive mind? Is it enough? Will you be able to remember God at the last moment if you have just controlled the gates? No, you have to do one more thing. And then he says, you have to take the mind and focus it on in the heart. In the heart means buddhi. Heart is supposed to be, the spiritual heart is supposed to be the seat of buddhi. So that is where we pay, that is where we dedicate our Gayatri mantra, because that is the place of illumination. So the mind, the reactive mind, if it is constantly directed towards the heart, and to facilitate that, we use the mantra. We use the mantra to focus our mind, to concentrate our mind, reactive mind, on the buddhi. And in the buddhi, the place where the seat of the buddhi is, the heart, we meditate on the Ishta as full of bliss, as Satchidananda Brahman, because that is the goal we want to attain. So, Sri Krishna says, first see that the gates are regulated or controlled, so that through your eyes, through your ears, through your mouth, and all the five senses of Gyanendriyas and the five organs which interact with this world throughout our life, having controlled them, having got some kind of control over them or a proper control over them, ensuring that the mind is not agitated, because it requires a calm and collected mind. The manas should be, the reactive mind should be such that the reaction should be less, so that it can focus on, it can easily focus on the buddhi, or the seat of the buddhi, which is the heart. It can focus in the seat of the buddhi. That is what the instructions are when you meditate. And you direct it using the mantra, trying to understand the meaning of the mantra. And when that mantra becomes Chaitanya, when the mantra becomes conscious, how does it become conscious? There's one more step remaining. In the 12th chapter, in the 8th chapter, the 12th verse, Sri Krishna continues that it's not enough to focus the reactive mind on the buddhi. There is one more thing which you need to do, especially when prayana kale, means the last time just before death. Now, here he says, the poet says, I don't have to go to Gaya, Ganga, Prabhas, Kashi if I can breathe my last chanting Kali's name. So how can I breathe my last using chant his name? So what is breath? Breath is one of the pranas. So the third instruction given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in this 8th verse, in the 12th verse of the 8th chapter, he says, concentrate the prana on the Sahasrara, the chakra. Of course, you meditate on the heart, but the heart chakra is a chakra where you become stable, and that is the chakra in our spinal cord which goes up to the top of the head. So that is where prayana kale, means towards the end of the life, if one succeeds in doing this, then he can definitely, if he can repeat Kali's name, then he will be doing this. Or if he succeeds in doing this, he can chant Kali's name or his Ishta's name. Then no other thought will come at the time of death, and then he doesn't have to go to all the pilgrimage places for moksha. He will get it anywhere, wherever he is. Because he says, if I have Kali's name in my grip, and according as Sri Krishna has advised, focus the prana. The prana means the life force on the murdhni. Murdhni means in the top of the head. So if you know, Sri Ram Krishna used to go into samadhi. Very often, all the chakras were transcended. The different 6 chakras were transcended, and he used to go into samadhi. The doctors, for all practical purposes, Dr. Sarkar and all, used to find he was dead. He was clinically dead because there was no breathing. All the pranas, all the 4 pranas, samana, vyana, prana, and udana, and the vyana, prana, apana, samana, and vyana. These are the 5 pranas which become dormant when you go into samadhi. But the udana vayu is made to force to go through the sahasrara chakra. So when that happens, when the udana vayu goes, they say when a person gives up his body, it is the udana vayu which serves as a vehicle to take the sukshma sharira out of the annamaya kosha, and the Pranamaya Kosha. So the Annamaya Kosha, the four pranas and the Annamaya Kosha is left behind. As a result, the Sukshma Sharira gets an outlet through the Sahasrara, which is the Udana Vayu, which serves as a vehicle. So that, if that is possible according to Sri Krishna, if you can do that, then you will be able to dive with the name of the Ishta. So first focusing the reactive mind in the center of the heart where your Ishta resides and taking his name. So taking his name means thinking of him. And if you do that with the prana focused on the top of the head. So Udana Vayu is, that's why when Sri Ramakrishna went into Samadhi, the doctors used to go and check if he is alive or not. There is only one way of testing that. That Ayurvedic doctor, because Sarkar was totally confused. He said, in according to allopathy, this person is dead. There's no breathing, there's no heart beat. How can clinically a person survive if these pranas have left? But the Udana Vayu is still there, and that is why Sri Ramakrishna used to, that doctor used to go and take some clarified butter or ghee, it is known as ghee, and apply it on the top of the head and where the Sahasrara Chakra is. And he used to see if it is still warm. If that is warm, that means he will come down. He needs an entry point. So if it leaves permanently, then that portion also becomes cold like the other parts of the body. So that Udana Vayu, which is responsible, which is upward going force of prana, and also is responsible for the body heat. It maintains the body heat. So that Udana Vayu is active. So once you focus on that Udana Vayu and concentrate Murdhani, and that is what Murdhani means, the top of the skull where the Sahasrara Chakra is. So that is how Prayana Kale means at the time of death, one can breathe his last. I mean, all the pranas will go, the breathing is also one prana, but with Kali's name. That is possible only if one, possible for a yogi who has done sadhana all his life. So, here the poet says, of what use are rituals for one who utters Kali's name at dawn, noon and dusk? That means if you do sadhana, as is explained in the 8th chapter, 12th verse, focus on the heart, meditate on the heart center and focus the prana towards the Sahasrara. You don't have to do it, it automatically happens. You just have to focus on the heart. But one thing is important, you have to regulate the gates. Sarva Dwarani Sanyam, the Dwaras or the gates. Otherwise, there will be a lot of reactions in the manas, the reactive mind. It will always be reacting to the, if you are allowing undesirable thoughts, undesirable perceptions to come in, then the undesirable thoughts will come. There are internal samskaras. So all those things agitate the mind and don't allow you to focus the manas on the buddhi or the heart or in the heart. So Sri Ramakrishna says, if you do it, if one, the poet says, Sri Ramakrishna is singing this song, one who utters Kali's name at dawn, noon or dusk, if one does continuous japa of one's Ishta mantra throughout the 3 prahars or 4 prahars, dawn, noon and dusk, that is the Sandhya time. Normally that is supposed to be a transition from night to day, that is dawn, in the noon when the AM becomes PM, and then when you finally go to the dusk when the sun sets. So there is this Sandhi period. In that period, the mind is becomes automatically calm. It's a very good time for meditation. That is why they say, if one is meditating on the Lord during the Sandhi Kala, then what is the use of rituals? He doesn't have to go to do any rituals, nor does he have to go on pilgrimage. Then he says, charity, vows, giving alms no longer appeal to Madan's mind. Madan is the poet. So he's saying, my Madan's mind is not bothered about doing charity, taking vows. And these are there, these are known as the kindergarten of religion. So when we are in the kindergarten, we need these things perhaps. But once you are focused, once the Guru has given you the mantra, once you have devotion to the holy name of Kali or any mantra which you have taken. And if you are confident of chanting Kali's name while you are breathing your last, that is the goal of life, because if that happens, then one is not born, then one can get rid of the cycle of birth and death. Dukkhalayam. So he says meditating and thinking of me. He just doesn't say taking the prana to the Sahasrara, but at the same time he says thinking of me. Thinking of me means what? Thinking of me here means thinking of the Ishta, thinking of Brahman, Satchidananda. Any Ishta is a representation of Brahman. So in the mind, in the buddhi, or in the heart, which is the seat of buddhi, one has to meditate. If one is able to do that, then his worship, the person, the yogis or the bhaktas, only worship is to surrender at mother's blessed feet or the Ishta's blessed feet. All he has to do is focus on that, and that alone will enable the devotee or the yogi to remember the Lord when it really matters, when I can breathe my last. Goya Ganga Prabhasadi Kashi Kanchi Keva Chai. If I can chant the name after he says the next word, it's a nice song, then he doesn't have to practice charity, practice vows. These are all there which serves the purpose of purifying the mind, purifying the chitta, purifying the indriyas. It's not just the chitta, it's the indriyas also. That's why we call it chitta shuddhi. The mind is purified if the indriyas are purified, if the gates are controlled, if the gates are sanyamya, means if they are under your control. So the mind controls the indriyas, not the indriyas controlling the mind. It is like putting the horse, as I said. We have to put the horse before the cart. But if the horse is put behind the cart is in front of the horse, then the horse finds it difficult to travel, take the carriage forward. So also the manas and the buddhi should progressively control the lower indriyas. So Sarvadvarani Sanyamya here means charity, vows and giving alms and all those things. They are preliminary sadhana which helps us to control the gates of our senses. That is all it can do. But after that, his worship alone, surrendering to the Lord alone or to the blessed feet alone, can give you mukti. Lord Shiva himself, Mahadeva, Devadi Deva Mahadev, God of gods, with all his power sings her praises. So here he is a Shakta, so he is glorifying the Divine Mother, and he says, if Lord Shiva himself praises her, who then can conceive of the power of her holy name? So how great will be the name if Shiva himself utters the name of the Divine Mother. So this is a very devotional song written by Madan, and Madan says that uh, charity vows and alms and all no longer appeal to me. I have finished with those rituals. By the grace of the Lord, my chitta has become shuddha. So I just have to repeat the Lord's name, do the mantra as much as possible. Thakur sings intoxicated in ecstasy as if he is initiated in Agni mantra. So as if, because every mantra is known as Agni mantra. When you say some powerful discussion, a powerful mantra, so it acts like it has the power to burn the seeds, the Dagda Bij Avastha, all the samskaras will be burnt. So Thakur sings another song in intoxicated in ecstasy, as it were. So he says, Mother, can I but die with Durga Sami Jodi? There is a song which says, if I just die with Durga's name upon my lips, then I'll see, O Shankari, that is addressing Durga as Shankari, how in the end you can't refuse or rescue me. I mean, here is a tamasic type of bhakta who is threatening, literally threatening the mother. He said, if I die with Durga's name on my lips, then I will see how will you not come to rescue me. So even there is so much force in the tamasic devotion also. That is what Sri Ramakrishna says. A tamasic devotee, he may be adamant, he may want to fight it out, and he may even quarrel with the mother, saying that I have taken your name, you can't just ditch me like that. How can you refuse to rescue me? I have taken your name is all powerful. So if I just die, whatever happens, you will have to rescue me. So Sri Krishna is singing this song and then explaining the meaning of the song. He says, why? I have chanted her name. How can there be any sin in me? So whatever I have done, whatever be the past, there is a tendency for all of us to regret about the things which have happened in the past. Or if we can't do that, part of our mind always tries to think of impossible things which perhaps may not happen in the future. So whether it happens or whether it does not happen, uh, we are anxious about the future. So if we are anxious about the future, then it drains away the energy or the strength of the mind. So the mind is always worried either about the past, it is dragging us down, the reactive mind, or reminiscing about the thinking about the events that have happened over which we have no control. They have happened and they have gone. But it drains away because that memory, that smriti, vritti, keeps on agitating the mind. Again and again we try to forget, but those thoughts come. So you say the problem is not, you see, the problem is not in the present. In the present we are fine. Most of the time the present is perfect for us. We are more or less in a comfortable position unless there is some problem in the present which you have to solve. But most of the time, I don't have faith in the power of the mantra. That is why I allow the mantra is used only to subjugate or to stop or to control the recurrence of the memory, the smritis, the old evil smritis or the old depressive smritis, the thoughts of the past which come to haunt us. And when they come, we feel helpless. We think, why are those thoughts coming? I don't want them. It is causing a lot of reaction in my mind. Already the mind is agitated. And if you stop those old thoughts inspire future worries and anxieties. Oh, it happened like this. So if it happens like this in the future. So all these anxieties which have not happened or perhaps may not happen at all in our life. But the very worry and the anxiety causes vrittis and they then in turn cause samskaras. So they are the seeds. So this Agni mantra, the mantra of the Lord, helps us to remove the seed, the bija. The bija means it is a seed. So it has a tendency to sprout. Thoughts do not sprout unless there is a seed. So somewhere in the unconscious mind, the seeds are sown by us. We have ourselves sown these seeds. And when we water them, when those things start sprouting, then we don't know. We did not realize the dry seeds were lying in the field. Suddenly you will find a lot of weeds coming up. And then you perhaps think, where did these weeds come? I never planted them. But we don't realize the old dry seeds are still lying dormant in the soil, under the soil. And they are the one which comes and sprout along with the good crop. So that is what is happening to us. So to burn that, we need an Agni mantra. The to burn those seeds so that they don't sprout and don't harass us. So the tamasic devotee says, I might have done so many sins and they may be haunting me, but now I have got mother's mantra. See the faith of this tamasic devotee. He says, why? I have chanted the name, her name, which is all powerful. How can there be any sin? Even if whatever I have done in the past, everything will be burnt. The memory of that thing has to be burnt. And I am her son. So this is purifying the ego. From kacha ami you are going to the paka ami. And you have to emphatically that tamasic devotee says, I am mother's son. So nothing will happen to me. So that kind of faith Sri Ramakrishna says one should have. It should not be lukewarm faith. If one is not sattvic, even if one is tamasic, direct it to God and say, I am the inheritor of her power and glory. I am not an ordinary person. I may have committed mistakes, but my mother is strong. She is the queen of this the empress of this universe. She is the Shakti. So Kali or the divine mother is the Prakriti who is uh, empowering everybody. So such must be the spirit. So I am the I have fully I have inherited her glory and power because I am her son. So if at all there was something, some defect in me or some samskaras or the idea of sin in me, everything will be burnt by this Agni mantra, by this, uh, and the seeds will be burnt and so that they no longer sprout, and I will, uh, if I can die with Durga's name, because if I constantly repeat that name, naturally towards the end of my life, I will remember her and she will can't refuse me. That is what a Tamasic Bhakta says. So now we come to the next line. If you can give a turn to your Tamoguna. So Sri Ramakrishna is talking about devotees or about people who are full of tamas, because all the three gunas are created by the Divine Mother herself. Prakriti gives rise to these gunas. So they are all her gunas, whether it is rajas, tamas. The idea is how to transcend these gunas. So your best way is you direct it. You can turn those tamo guna and not think that it is a bad habit or a sin, and turn it to realize God. Force your demands on Him, on the Lord. He is no stranger. He is part of you. He is the soul of your soul. He is our own. And then see how the quality of tamas can be used for the welfare of others. So that tamasic spirit, that rajasic spirit or that sattvic spirit helps a person to be devoted and at the same time inspire others, the whole world, to show that Girish Ghosh showed. Girish Ghosh very clearly told all the devotees and used to tell the whole world that if you want to see the glory of Sri Ramakrishna, don't see Narendra. He was Sattvic from birth. Right from birth, he was Sattvic. So to make him great, there is no problem at all. It's not a very big thing for Sri Ramakrishna. But if he has made a tamasic person like me Sattvic and made me transcend the gunas and get mukti or become godly, then that is his great achievement, to convert even a tamasic person. So the Divine Mother has the power and the glory to convert every one of us, irrespective of our past or our gunas, to lift us up and do that. Now another thing he is discussing, Sri Ramakrishna, is this is the power of the Divine Mother. But then there is how to understand the power of the Divine Mother, how to understand how the journey of the Spirit takes place. Are we proceeding in the right direction? Are we inspired enough to be convinced that repeating the Lord's name, doing japa, doing sadhana is the only way to get rid of sorrow? The every repetition of the bija removes some sorrow or some tendency to create a sorrow. The tendencies are there. We may not, we may be very happy now. That is why that famous song of of Kabir is there. That famous doha of Kabir. Kabir says, when everybody is sukh mein sumirana, dukh mein sumirana kare sab. Everybody remembers the Lord when one is in trouble, because we want help. सुख में न करे कोई, सुख में न समिरण करे कोई. Nobody remembers God when he is in sukha, because he doesn't need God at that time. But Kabir adds, if one remembers him when one is happy, when one is relaxing, when is in sukha, in enjoying pleasure, at that time if one remembers the God, to dukh kahe ko hoy. How will he ever get dukkha? He will be beyond sorrow. So to take you beyond sorrow, you need somebody to inspire you when you are happy. When you are sad, you run helter skelter and you catch hold of some spiritual person or even go to a guru. Most of the people who, Arjuna for example, he felt the need of the guru when he was in crisis. So it's very natural that all of us go to seek help from a teacher or a guru or God when we are in a crisis. So how the guru acts, a true guru, a true physician. Sri Ramakrishna is comparing a guru to a physician. So there are three types of physicians: the superior physician, the mediocre physician, and inferior physician. So they are can be compared as spiritual doctors, the guru, who fall into these three categories. So the physician who comes, feels the patient's pulse and then says to him, "Brother, please take this medicine," and leaves, he is an inferior physician. So some person or some guru who gives you the mantra or gives you some spiritual guidance and says, "Please do it," he can be called as an inferior physician. He doesn't bother to find out if the patient has taken the medicine. The physicians who persuades the patient in many ways to take the medicine, who sits in a sweet voice, "Oh brother, how can you be cured unless you take the medicine? Dear brother, please take it. See, I am myself mixing it for you. Now take it." He is a mediocre physician. He doesn't use force, but he tries to repeatedly remind the disciple or the patient, as just as the doctor reminds the patient, the ideal guru or the ideal physician, the mediocre physician, at least persuades the patient. Even if he forgets to take the medicine, now and then he contacts him and says, "Have you taken the medicine? Have you taken the medicine? If you don't do it, how can you be cured?" So all these things a physician does. A mediocre physician does. The inferior physician just gives the medicine and says, "This will help you," and he doesn't bother after that. He doesn't even think about the disciple. He said, "I have done my duty. Now if you are sensible enough, you do it." But some people are lucky. They go to mediocre physicians who keep on reminding you. They don't force you, but they keep on reminding you. And because you are reminded again and again, and in a very sweet way, say, "Dear brother, please take it. I am myself mixing it for you." So he now and then comes to the disciple and says, "You see, I gave you the mantra, you repeat it, do the sadhana. If you have any problem, you just discuss with me, but please go on doing it. Don't forget it. It will come handy when you are in trouble." Now you are happy, perhaps you don't feel the need. As Kabir said, "Sukh mein, dukh mein sumiran sabhi kare." So when he is in crisis, he will go and he will perhaps repeat the mantra given by his guru, saying that, "No, oh Lord, please save me from this predicament, from this struggle." But if you do the mantra when you are happy, when you are in a uh, comparatively, when you are in sukha, so he says at that time, if you do, then you will never have sorrow. So the mediocre guru tells him, even when he is relaxing, when the disciple, he keeps on reminding, "You have not taken the medicine. See, you have not been cured. So you need to do it again and again. Now please take it." So at least he uh, persuades the patient, the doctor, and makes him take the medicine. But in some cases, the disciple is very adamant. The physician who sees that the patient stubbornly refuses to take the medicines. So there are a category of, so the guru behaves with different people in different way. He tries to persuade some who are obedient. He can play the role of a mediocre physician or a mediocre guru because he knows my disciples are really good. He has faith in the disciples. So he tries to just remind them now and then and hope that this constant reminder will help them even to take the name of the Lord when they are in during their happy days, so that when the sorrow comes, they are prepared, or they may not be succumb to their sorrows. So that is the mediocre physician. But there are some disciples or some patients who refuse to take, stubbornly refuse. They said, "No, I am okay. I don't want these medicines." In that case, the role of the guru or role of the physician, who is the ideal physician, he puts his knee on the patient's chest and forces the medicine down his throat. So that is the ideal guru. He is a superior physician. This is the tamo guna of the physician. It helps the patient, it does not harm him. So sometimes the guru has to make a show of anger. Sri Ramakrishna used to sometimes very scold Latu Maharaj and all his disciples because he knew certain things will harm them. So even if necessary, the Lord or the master or the guru or a spiritual person can make a show of tamas and force the patient to take medicine because he knows ultimately it will be good for him. So, like physicians, then now Sri Ramakrishna comes to religious teachers, the gurus, acharyas, are of three types. Here he is referring to the acharyas, the Jagat gurus, not the ordinary guru, but it can be applied to lesser gurus also. So he says, like physicians, religious teachers or acharyas are also of three types. Those who instruct their disciples on spiritual matters, they give the instructions when they are approached and then make no inquiries about their progress are of the inferior type. But people like Sri Ramakrishna are far superior. Those who repeat their teachings again and again for the good of their disciples so that they can internalize the instructions, who make requests in various ways and also show love, very lovingly cajole the disciple, try to repeat the mantra as often as possible, and have infinite patience. These are the mediocre gurus. Sri Ramakrishna used to repeat the same thing. Kamini Kanchan Tyag, Abhyas Vairagya, Nirjan Vas. So once Hriday got irritated, he said, Mama, you are repeating the same thing again and again. Don't you have anything new to tell? I saw a few days ago you said the same thing. If you repeat the same thing, these people will not come. Hriday was not bothered about the teaching. He was bothered about the rich people who came to Thakur. He was always he was of a worldly type. So he was not bothered. He was saying that he was using Sri Ramakrishna, or he was thinking that if Sri Ramakrishna speaks new things, newer and newer things, that is what happens to most of the spiritual aspirants. They go on YouTube, they go on different media platforms and try to learn new and new things. They say, I finished this Upanishad, I finished this, I want to hear this, I want to hear that. They are curious, but that curiosity is shallow. They don't want to go dive deep. So as a result, what happens? They want to know many things. They want. So Sri Ramakrishna did not like this remark of Hriday. He said Hriday's only intention was if you give a variety, beautiful discourses. He knew people are attracted, but he didn't know that people are attracted by Thakur's spirituality, not by just his words. The power behind the words was attracting them. The transformation, otherwise a person like Master Mashai was much more educated. Keshav Chandra Sen, who spoke before the Queen, all their erudition and the wonderful speeches they gave, they came and listened like children in front of Sri Ramakrishna. Why was that? Hriday did not know that. He thought if my mama repeats the same thing, he used to, whenever he saw, Thakur is saying Nirjan Vas, Sadhu Sangha, Nitya Nitya Vastu Vivek Karo, and Nam Jap, and all the standard things, and Abhyasa, Vairagya, and all those things, the essential things of spirituality is to tell using different example, like cutting a jackfruit and living like a housemaid in a rich man's house. So how to practice detachment, all these things very often you will find Thakur repeating. Most of the parables, there were many new things he used to tell, but he would not compromise just because people want to hear variety. Superficial people want to hear variety because they are just interested in listening to the discourses, but they don't think deeply to how to apply it so that transformation is there. For that you don't require many discourses. You can just read the Kathamrita and that can solve all the problems. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that the mediocre guru at least repeats his. He says you don't have to go here and there. Here is the mantra, here is the instructions I gave. Those few instructions are more than enough. But still, if because we don't have faith in our own guru, we or the master, we don't have the faith in the physician. It's just like not having faith in the physician. You will go to other doctors. Oh, the medicine may or may not work. So such people want different and different things. They want to hear different things, new things. So Hriday was thinking, if Thakur speaks different attractive things, more and more people will come and he will be able to uh, fulfill his worldly pursuits. Maybe get money, get some favor from them, which he never got. In fact, as I said, the last few days Hriday spent in selling gamchas or the towels to earn a living, because the son-in-law of Mathur Babu removed him from Dakshineshwar. So all his plans of keeping in contact with rich people, which will be helpful for him to earn some money, using his mama as a his mama of course never listened to him, and then he scolded him once. I will say the same thing 100 times. What is it to you? আমি আবার বলবো. And he used very harsh words. He said, what is it to you? I will repeat. What is good? I will repeat 100 times. That is what a ideal guru does. So those who repeat their teachings again and again, that is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, for the good of their disciples, so that they may internalize the instructions, which is more important. Instructions may be few. We don't need many instructions, but have we practiced it? Then we can opt for learning newer and newer things. But one has to internalize it, who make requests in various ways and with love. So the guru, he doesn't get upset. Many times the disciples have a tendency to go elsewhere. They are not satisfied. If a simple, even in the case of Swami Yogananda, when he was saying that, when he was struggling against lust, Kamini Kanchan, so he was saying that I am finding it very difficult. So you give me some technique. He thought by doing some kind of yoga, some asana, the ability to control lust or kama would increase. So Sri Ramakrishna told him, you don't have to do, because there was a yogi living in the Dakshineshwar garden, Hatha Yogi. So he was thinking, Yogananda was thinking, Yogin as his name was, Yogindra, he was thinking that if I go to this Hatha Yogi, he may give some formula or something so that I can control my lust. So he goes to Sri Ramakrishna and says, I am planning to go there. And Sri Ramakrishna observes that he was going there. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, you don't have to do that. Just repeat Harinam. Just repeat the holy name of the God. If you go towards the west, the east will be away from you. If you go towards the north, you will be going away from the south. So you don't have to go away from the south. You have to go towards the north. Have a positive approach. So he said, just repeat Harinama and you will get rid of it. But he doesn't believe in his guru. He thinks perhaps he doesn't know Hatha Yoga. That was a very, in the initial stages, Yogananda did not have so much, perhaps did not have so much faith. So he again and again went there because he was finding it that. Then Sri Ramakrishna scolded him and very lovingly told him, see, don't disobey. You just do what I say and see. And within a few days, Yogananda found that it was very effective. So the Guru does not give up. Though the disciple sometimes have a tendency to lose faith, to have some kind of doubts, and but the Guru does not lose or should not lose the patience. He says he would make requests. Imagine Guru requesting the disciple, like the doctor requesting. The good doctor should do that. He should request, see, please don't neglect, please take this medicine, please take this medicine, and he will ensure. But when it has no effect on the patient, these are the mediocre types, Sri Ramakrishna says, of acharyas. But the real acharya, and those who use force when they find the disciples don't listen, I call them superiors. For example, Trigunaatitanandji, when he was in Shanti Ashrama, he was he was very strict with his discipline. So you had to get up at 3 minutes 3. So the discipline enforced on the children, I mean on the disciples, was too much. Some of the Westerners were finding it very suffocating. So they were uh, uh, trying to rebel. So one day Trigunatitanji told them, you see, he was in San Francisco convent center, and he had started that center, and they used to go for retreats, and he used to make them work very hard, practice spiritual disciplines, do japa, sit in a particular asana for a long time and go on repeating the japa. So that was actually a bit of a strain, and some of the disciples started complaining. Then Trigunatitananji, like a ideal physician or like an ideal acharya, he once just burst out. He said, if necessary, I will break every bone in your body, but I will see that you get mukti in this life. For your freedom, in the sense, freedom from all the sorrow, even if I have to break every bone in your body, I will do it. So he was so agitated. Then all of them felt, oh, how much he's keen that we should be free in this life itself. So an ideal guru, a superior acharya, he focuses or uses force if necessary, if he feels that the disciple is lacking a little bit. First he tries to cajole him, because many of the disciples are good if they are constantly reminded, if the guru is after them, they listen. But in some cases, like this Trigunatita in this example, when things were going out of hand, we used to say, you see, even if it means breaking every bone in your body, if it takes you, because I know there is so much suffering. Without this, you can't realize God. Without this, you can't get rid of suffering. Without this, you can't enjoy eternal bliss. Again and again, you have to come to this dukkhalaya, the abode of sorrow. So, this abode of sorrow with a little happiness in between makes us, unless we really feel it, unless there is a acharya of the type of the Uttama Guru, as he says, who uses force if necessary, this is not going to happen. So, we are almost, it is 8 o'clock. If there are some questions, you can ask.